The Drumcree conflict at Drumcree standoff is an ongoing dispute over yearly parades in the town of Portadown, Northern Ireland. The Orange Order insists that it should be allowed to march its traditional route to and from Drumcree Church. However, most of this route is through the mainly Catholic Irish nationalist part of town. The residents, who see the march as sectarian, triumphalist and supremacist, have sought to ban it from their area. The Orangemen see this as an attack on the traditions. They had marched the route since 1807, when the area was mostly farmland. The Drumcree Parade is held on the Sunday before the 12th of July. There has been intermittent violence over the march since the 1800s. The onset of the Troubles led to the dispute intensifying in the 1970s and 1980s. At this time, the most contentious part of the route was the outward leg along Abbins Street. After serious violence 2 years in a row, the march was banned from Abbins Street in 1986. The focus then shifted to the march's return leg along Garvey Road. Each July from 1995 to 2000, the dispute drew international attention as it sparked protests and violence throughout Northern Ireland, prompted a massive British Army operation, and threatened to derail the peace process. The situation in Portadown was likened to a war zone and a siege. During this time, the dispute led to the killing of at least 6 Catholic civilians. In 1995 and 1996, residents succeeded in stopping the march. This led to a standoff at Drumcree between the security forces and thousands of Orangemen, Loyalists. Following a wave of Loyalist violence, the march was allowed through. In 1997, security forces locked down the Catholic area and forced the march through, citing Loyalist threats to kill Catholics. This sparked widespread protests and violence by nationalists. From 1998 onward, the march was banned from Garvey Road and the Catholic area was sealed off with large steel, concrete and barbed wire barricades. Each year there was a major standoff at Drumcree and widespread Loyalist violence. Since 2001 things have been relatively calm, but moves to get the two sides into face-to-face talks have failed. Background: Portadown has long been mainly Protestant and Unionist, Loyalist. At the height of the conflict in the 1990s, about 70% of the population were from a Protestant background and 30% from a Catholic background. The town's Catholics and Irish nationalists, as in the rest of Northern Ireland, had long suffered discrimination, especially in employment. Throughout the 20th century, the police, Royal Ulster Constabulary, was also almost wholly Protestant. Each summer the town centre is bedecked with Loyalist flags and symbols. A Loyalist arch is raised over the Garvey Road at the Corcrane River, just inside the Catholic district. This is to coincide with the marching season, when numerous Protestant Loyalist marches are held in the town. Each July there are 5 Protestant Loyalist parades that enter the mainly Catholic Irish nationalist district. The Drumcree Sunday parade from the town centre to Drumcree Church and back again. This is the biggest of the parades. Its traditional route was Abbins Street, Corcrane Road, Dungannon Road, Drumcree Road, Garvey Road, but it is now banned from Abbins Street and Garvey Road. The 12th of July Parade. This involves a morning march from Corcrane Orange Hall to the town centre. The marchers then travel to a bigger parade elsewhere, return to the town centre in the evening, and march back to Corcrane Orange Hall. Its traditional route was along Abbins Street, but it is now along Corcrane Road. The 13th of July Parade. This follows the same format as the 12th parade. There is also a junior orange parade each May along the lower Garvey Road at Victoria Terrace. Before partition, the Orange Order was founded in 1795 in the village of Lochel, a few miles from Drumcree, after the Battle of the Diamond. Its first ever marches were held on the 12th of July 1796 in Portadown, Lurgan and Warringstown. The area is thus seen as the birthplace of Orangism. In July 1795, the year the order formed, a Reverend Devine had held a Battle of the Boyne commemoration sermon at Drumcree Church. In his History of Ireland Volume 1, historian Francis Plowden described what followed this sermon. So worked up the minds of his audience, that upon retiring from service they gave full scope to the anti-papistical zeal, with which he had inspired them, falling upon every Catholic they met, beating and bruising them without provocation or distinction, breaking the doors and windows of the houses, and actually murdering 2 unoffending Catholics in a bog. The first official Orange parade to and from Drumcree Church was in July 1807. Originally and traditionally it was to celebrate the Battle of the Boyne, but the order now claims that it commemorates the Battle of the Somme during World War I. Each July, the Orangemen have marched from the town centre to Drumcree via Abbins Street, Dungannon Road and returned along Garvey Road. In the early 19th century, this area was mostly farmland. In 1835, Armagh Magistrate William Hancock wrote that for some time past the peaceable inhabitants of the parish of Drumcree have been insulted and outraged by large bodies of Orangemen parading the highways, playing party tunes, firing shot and using the most opprobrious epithets they could invent. He added that the Orangemen go a considerable distance out of the way to pass a Catholic chapel on the march to Drumcree. There was violence during the Drumcree parades in 1873, 1883, 1885, 1886, 1892, 1903, 1905, 1909 and 1917. After the partition of Ireland in 1921, the Northern Ireland government's policy tended to favour Protestant and Unionist parades. From 1922 to 1950, almost 100 parades and meetings were banned under the Special Powers Act. Nearly all were Irish nationalist or Republican. Although violence died down during this period, there were clashes at the 1931 and 1950 Drumcree parades. The Public Order Act 1951 exempted traditional parades from having to ask police permission, but non-traditional parades could be banned or rerouted without appeal. Again, the legislation tended to benefit Protestant parades. In the 1960s, housing estates were built along Garvey Road. In 1969, Northern Ireland was plunged into a conflict known as the Troubles. Portadown underwent major population shifts. These new estates became almost wholly Catholic, while the rest of the town's estates became almost wholly Protestant. Many Orangemen joined the Northern Ireland Security Forces, the Royal Ulster Constabulary and the British Army's Ulster Defence Regiment. 1970s and 1980s, Abbins Street. In March 1972, thousands of Loyalists attended an Ulster Vanguard rally in the town, which was addressed by Martin Smith and the Mayor of Portadown. After the rally, Loyalists attacked the Catholic neighbourhood around Abbins Street, known as the Tunnel. Following this, Catholic residents formed a protest group named the Portadown Resistance Council, which called for the upcoming marches to be rerouted away from Abbins Street. The Ulster Defence Association, a then legal Loyalist vigilante and paramilitary group, warned of consequences if anything was done to stop the march. The day before the march, Catholics sealed off Abbins Street with makeshift barricades. On the morning of the march, Sunday the 9th of July, British troops and riot police moved in to secure the area. When they bulldozed the barricades, they They were stoned by Catholic protesters and responded by firing CS gas and rubber bullets. Once the area was secured, they allowed the 1,200 Orangemen to march along the road, which was lined by at least 50 masked and uniformed UDA members. The UDA men then made their way to Drumcree and escorted the Orangemen back into town along Garvey Road. With troops and police out in force, the march passed peacefully. However, on the 12th of July, 3 men were shot dead in Portadown. A Protestant, Paul Beattie, was shot in Churchill Park, a housing estate off Garvey Road. Hours later, a UDA member entered McCabe's bar and shot the Catholic pub owner, Jack McCabe, and a Protestant customer, William Cochran. That day, under tight security, the Orangemen again marched along Abbins Street, this time from Cochrane Orange Hall to the town centre. On the 15th of July, Catholic civilian Felix Hughes was kidnapped, beaten, tortured and shot dead by the UDA in a Protestant area of the town. He had been a long-time member of St. Patrick's accordion band based on Abbins Street. Later in the month, the Provisional Irish Republican Army detonated a bomb on Woodhouse Street, and Loyalists bombed a Catholic church. In the Abbins Street area there was also a gun battle involving the IRA, the UDA, and the security forces. The UDA's involvement in the 1972 dispute made a lasting impression on Portadown's Catholics and Irish nationalists. The IRA warned that the UDA would not be allowed to repeat such actions. On St. Patrick's Day 1985, the St. Patrick's Accordion Band was given permission to parade a 2-mile circuit of the mainly Catholic area. However, a small part of the 2-mile route was lined with Protestant-owned houses. Arnold Hatch, the town's Ulster Unionist Party mayor, demanded the march be banned. When the police let it go ahead, Hatch and a small group of Loyalists staged a sit-down protest on Park Road. The police forced the band to turn around. That evening, the band again tried to march the route. Although the protesters had gone, police again stopped the band and there was a confrontation between police and residents. Following this incident, Portadown Catholics boosted the campaign to ban orange marches from Abbins Street. Social Democratic and Labour Party politician Breed Rogers described this incident as pivotal in the escalation of the parade dispute. Shortly before the Drumcree parade of the 7th of July 1985, hundreds of residents staged a sit-down protest on Abbins Street. Present was Eunice Kennedy Shriver, sister of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy. Among the 2,000 Orangemen were Unionist politicians Martin Smith, Harold McCusker and George C. Wright. Riot police, armed with batons, forcefully removed the protesters and allowed the march to continue. At least one man was beaten unconscious by police and many were arrested. The whole length of Garvey Road was lined with British Army and police armoured vehicles for the marchers' return leg. At one point stones were thrown at the marchers and an Orangeman was injured. Police announced that the 12th and the 13th of July marchers would be rerouted away from Abbins Street. On the 12th of July, 8 Orange lodges and hundreds of Loyalist bandsmen met at Cochrane Orange Hall and tried to march through Abbins Street to the town centre. When they were blocked by police, hundreds of Loyalists gathered at both ends of Abbins Street and attacked police lines for several hours. These clashes resumed the following evening and Loyalists attacked police with ball bearings fired from slingshots. In the two-day clashes, at least 52 police officers and 28 rioters were injured. 37 people were arrested and about 50 Catholic-owned homes and businesses were attacked. After this, police erected a barrier at each end of Abbins Street. In July 1985, residents of the Catholic district formed a group called People Against Injustice, later renamed the Drumcree Faith and Amp Justice Group. It quickly became the main group representing the residents. The DFJG sought to explain to Orangemen how residents felt about the marches and to improve cross-community relations. It organized peaceful protests, issued newsletters and held talks with police. It also tried, unsuccessfully, to hold talks with the Orangemen. One of the key figures in this group was a Jesuit priest who, during one of his Sunday sermons in Portadown, suggested that anyone who voted for Sinn Féin should consider themselves excommunicated. The Apprentice Boys of Derry, a Protestant fraternity similar to the Orange Order, had planned to march along Garvey Road and through the town centre on the afternoon of the 1st of April. On the 31st of March, police decided to ban the march as it believed Loyalist paramilitaries were planning to hijack it. That evening, cars with loudspeakers toured Protestant areas and summoned people to gather in the town centre to contest the ban. At 1 a.m., at least 3,000 Loyalists gathered in the town centre, forced their way past a small group of police, and began marching along Garvey Road. Among them was Ian Paisley, leader of the Democratic Unionist Party and Free Presbyterian Church. Residents claimed that some of the marchers were carrying guns and were known to be members of the police and UDR. Some of the marchers attacked houses along the route, and residents claimed the police did little or nothing to stop this. There followed rioting between residents and the police, and residents set up barricades for fear of further attacks. There was a feeling among locals that police had mutinied and refused to enforce the ban. In the afternoon, apprentice boys' bands tried to enter the town centre for their planned march. When police blocked them, a fierce riot erupted. After negotiations, the bands were allowed to march through the town centre with some restrictions. However, Loyalists then attacked police who had sealed off a Binns Street. One of the Loyalists, Keith White, was shot in the face by a plastic bullet and died in hospital on the 14th of April. Police again decided that the Drumcree Sunday parade would be allowed along a Binns Street with some restrictions, but that the 12th and the 13th of July parades would be rerouted. On the 6th of July 1985, an estimated 4,000 soldiers and police were deployed in the town for the Drumcree parade. Police said the Orange Order had allowed known troublemakers to take part in the march contrary to a prior agreement. Among them was George C. Wright, a Unionist politician and Ulster Volunteer Force member who had proposed burning Catholics in ovens. As the march entered the Catholic district, police seized C. Wright and others. Orangemen then attacked the police and journalists. A Catholic priest was assaulted by Loyalists, and at Drumcree a police Land Rover was overturned. Catholic youths also threw missiles at the police and marchers. At least 27 officers were injured. The 12th of July march into the town centre was blocked from a Binns Street for the second year. Instead, police escorted the march along Garvey Road without any bands. Although there was no violence on Garvey Road, Loyalists later rioted with police in the town centre and tried to smash through the barrier leading to a Binns Street. In 1987, the Public Order Act was repealed by the Public Order Order 1987, which removed the special status of traditional parades. This meant that, after 1986, orange marches were effectively banned from a Binns Street indefinitely. The July 1987 march was rerouted and 3,000 soldiers and 1,000 police were sent to keep order. Orangemen believed that sacrificing the Binns Street leg meant they would be guaranteed the Garvey Road leg. Although the Garvey Road leg had caused trouble before, it was less populated than a Binns Street at the time. In June 1988, the Drumcree Faith and Amp Justice Group, the group representing the Catholic Irish nationalist residents, planned a march to the town centre to highlight what it saw as double standards in the police's handling of nationalist and loyalist parades. It asked permission from police, saying there would be only 30 marchers and they would carry no flags or banners. They were denied permission.